Hi, and I am Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the author of the book Heal and Grow, no other than Mr. F. Francis Jones. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Frank, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
I would love to do so. Hello to you, Daniel, and thank you very much for having me be a part of Book 101 Review.
Yes, welcome.
Yes.
And what
Well,
in, what inspired you to become an author as the journey as a mental health professional?
well, I've been a therapist for about 40 years. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I've worked with a lot of different people. I've worked with couples, children, adolescents, and families. I've worked in different settings. I've worked of course, in private practice, but I've also worked in the hospital setting. I've worked in what's called day treatment. I've worked in residential treatment. I've worked in the group home setting with teenagers, and I've even done in home therapy. And through all these years of doing all of this and working with so many different people and different types of people, one day I was in the kitchen. It was right before the pandemic, I believe. And it just occurred to me, said, Frank, you need to write a book about your experiences and what you've learned from helping or working with so many people. And from then on, it became it just once I got the message or once I was inspired to write the book, the ideas just kept coming and they kept flowing to me. And I had to keep writing stuff down because more and more ideas just came to me as I decided to share the lessons that I learned on my journey, my 20-year plus journey of being a mental health professional.
So, how does the title Heal and Grow reflect the book's core message?
Well, ultimately, I believe that we are all here to heal and grow. I think we've all experienced personal challenges that have opened the doorway to both healing and both growing. Sometimes the challenges come to us and we feel overwhelmed, but sometimes we need challenges to grow. Like no one goes to the gym and says, "I want to get stronger, but I'm going to lift lighter weights." That doesn't happen. You have to lift more than 1 pound weights to get stronger. But it's that struggle that produces the growth, and that also promotes healing. And so I just really felt it was an important message to encourage. And I share personal stories in the book as well about my own challenges. But I just think it was an important and valuable lesson to share with people how healing and growing occurs because of the difficult things we have to face.
So, how does the book balance professional insights with personal experiences?
So each chapter, I focus on a different topic. So, for example, the first chapter is lessons learned about people in therapy. And then the next chapter, lessons learned about anxiety and depression, lessons learned about couples therapy, lessons learned about children and adolescents, lessons learned about men in therapy. And so within each one of those chapters, I share personal experiences, either something that I've dealt with, like if it's children and adolescents, I share some struggles or an experience that I had as an adolescent, men in therapy. And in doing so, and once I share that, I tie it in with what I've learned from being a therapist. We learn so much from other people. I think our relationships, the interactions we have with other people, are really our greatest teachers. And I
Definitely.
think we learn really well when there are personal stories or stories in general that are attached to those life lessons.
What are the most impactful lessons that you learn and you share to the book?
Wow, that's a big question. Wow. Um, because each chapter has something very unique that I've learned, but I would say overall, when I look at my life, when I look at the book, when I look at my personal beliefs, my philosophies, and my mindset, the one thing that has become apparent to me is that we're all connected. We're all one. And it's when we divide ourselves from one another, that's when we cause a lot of pain, unhappiness, sorrow, depression. In the I mentioned this in the book, and I even have this on a T-shirt and a sweatshirt in my merchandise area, and it says, "Ego divides, spirit unites." And by that saying, I mean that when we are living in our ego, we're just thinking about ourselves, what we want. We're thinking about how we're right, how we know everything. We're not thinking about others. We're just thinking about us. So that's and when we think like that, when we move like that, when we navigate the world in our ego, we just divide ourselves from our communities, our nations. It's a divisive mindset. But when we live in spirit, spirit is all about us coming together. It's about being one. And so the what I've learned, and it's the theme of the book, is that no matter what people go through, if there are other people involved, other people there to support, we can make it through. We can overcome pretty much any difficulty when we come together as a family, as a community, as a society, as a nation, as a planet.
As a planet, people. So, Mr. Frank, how do you describe the challenges working in a mental health?
Oh, well, which that is a chapter in the book, challenges that I've dealt with as a mental health professional. Um, there are a lot of potential challenges, uh, and every clinician or mental health professional probably has their own issues that are difficult. So I'm only going to speak to mine. Um, some of the challenges that I experience, one is making sure I don't spread myself too thin. When I work with a client, I'm very committed to helping them, to serving them, to overcome whatever they're dealing with. And to do that, I feel like I put my heart, my mind, my spirit into it. And it's important to make sure that I don't pour too much out and not replenish myself. And that's really about self-care, which is another chapter, but that's really important that I take care of me so that I can continue taking care of others. Another challenge that as a therapist I've encountered is having a client or clients that are stuck, and trying to help them to move forward, whether they're dealing with depression or whether it's a couple who they don't seem to be able to work through their issues. Um, Sometimes in the past, there was one incident I mentioned in the book about I worked with a very unique little girl. She had a significant amount of mental health and emotional issues, and she was in foster care. And it was when I was working at a day treatment facility where kids were brought in every day after school because of really severe issues. And the foster mother told me that if I could not help her, she was going to turn her back to the system. She was going to relinquish her. And that was a very difficult situation for me because I felt like I had to save her. And it was just, there was a situation that occurred, and the foster mother had had enough. And she said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to turn her back into the system. And that was very disappointing. But I had to be able to manage that disappointment because unfortunately, I don't have a magic wand. And as much as I truly want to help everybody and cure everybody, I can't. And so it's difficult sometimes to accept that I'm not able to help people get to sometimes I'm not able to help people get to where they want to be. And maybe it's somebody else who's better equipped for them, who's a better match. But those are probably some of the bigger challenges. There are others, trust me, there are plenty of others, but those are the ones that come to mind at this moment.
What insights does the book provide about the importance of emotional resilience?
Oof. Emotional resilience or resiliency is so important, especially in today's world. It just feels like things get more and more complicated and more difficult and more challenging. It feels like nothing is simple anymore. We all have to be resilient if we want to come out through the other side victorious. We have to understand that sometimes things aren't going to go smoothly. I'm also an instructor, a college instructor here in the state of Georgia, and I've tell my students all the time, we're all on a journey, we all have things we want to accomplish, but that road that we have to travel on, it's just not always going to be a smooth road. That road is going to have rocks, tree limbs, potholes, bumps, all types of stuff. And we have to know how to navigate those things, those other objects on our path, because that is what resiliency is all about. And I, I, I feel like some of us are doing a disservice to our children because we have some kids now who I don't know if we're helping them to be more resilient because there's some young people who are a little on the fragile side, and when difficulty comes their way, instead of trying to figure out how to work through it, they're ready to give up, or they need somebody to help them or hold their hand. And I don't think that's how we prepare our young people to deal with life and what life has to offer and life unexpected challenges. And so whether we're adult or children, resiliency is just so important.
So, Mr. Frank, what will be your advice for those beginning their healing journey?
First of all, I would say that I respect and appreciate someone being aware that it will probably be beneficial for them to start a journey of healing. So I want to acknowledge that because a lot of us think we're fine the way we are. There's nothing we need to change. I'm great. But to be aware that, you know what, I can be more, I can do more, I have healing that will help, healing that will help me in the end. Um, so I would applaud people who are first ready to start that journey. As far as actually beginning that journey, people have to figure out their own paths because every path is not right for everyone. But I'm a firm believer that we're all made up of mind, body, and spirit. And I think if we focus or are intentional about nurturing and feeding our bodies so that our bodies are as healthy as they possibly can be, getting enough rest, healthy food, exercise, movement, that helps. Nourishing our minds, doing things that are mentally stimulating, a good book, a quality podcast such as yours, taking up a new hobby, just getting a new class, starting a class. Those are ways we nurture our bodies, and we nurture our spirits by doing things that promote inner peace, whether it's praying, meditating, yoga, watching the sunset, sitting in nature. Those are spiritual things because they promote inner peace. And if we start our healing journey by trying to make sure we pay attention to our mind, body, and our spirits, I think we'll be on the way.
Definitely. Very well said. Very well said, Mr. Frank. And how do you emphasize the importance of empathy in mental health care?
Hmm. It's so interesting when you talk about empathy. Empathy really is about us caring about one another. And I've been known to say that if everybody was more empathetic, I might be out of a job. Maybe we wouldn't need as many therapists if there was more demonstrations of empathy. If people could
Yes.
really take the time to care and be concerned about other people, I don't know, put other people before themselves from time to time, we could change the world overnight if we just had more empathy. I mean literally overnight. If everyone just said, I'm going to put out 5% more empathy than I normally do. I'm going to express it. I'm going to really show I care. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be understanding and supportive. We could really make a difference. And so empathy is it's not spoken enough about. It's interesting that you even brought it up because that's a question I haven't really heard anybody ask me before. But empathy and even sympathy is it's just it's recognizing one another humaneness, our human nature. We're all here for a short period of time, and none of us know how long we're going to be here. Like
Yes.
we all have an expiration date, and we need to take advantage of these times that we do have our right minds and our bodies and show more empathy.
Totally agree, Mr. Frank. And what are your short term and long term goals in writing?
Okay, short term, long term. Well, this is the first book I've ever written. Heal and Grow: Lessons Learned on My Journey as a Mental Professional. I have thought about my short term goals for writing, and in the meantime, I've kind of been jotting notes in my phone, different ideas, different insights that have continued because we keep learning as we go along. Like learning never really stops. And so, excuse me, as I'm reading things, as I'm meditating and things are coming to my mind, I jot them down or I put them in my phone. And I'm kind of just letting them accumulate and see if they come together to form some type of second book, which gets me to the long term goal. And so I believe somewhere inside my mind, somewhere inside my heart, there's a second book here.
Yes.
And I haven't quite got it yet, but I know it's going to involve more stories. And I know it's still going to continue to focus on helping people to heal, to grow, and be the best version of themselves. That is for sure. Um, I I always thought I was going to write a fiction book one day, but I don't know if I have that in me. I'm more of a short story guy. When I was younger, I used to write short stories. I used to love shows like The Twilight Zone, and so stories where there's a twist at the end. You didn't see that coming. I love writing those type. I used to like writing those type of stories. So if I wrote anything fictional, it would probably be short stories that have a twist that's meaningful, that promotes healing and growing. But I don't know if that's the second book in me right now. But I'll just wait and see how that evolves.
Well, I'm encouraging you to do more empowering books like this, Mr. Frank, because you will empower lots of people all over the world. And how does the book highlight the evolving nature of mental health practices?
Okay, that's a good question. I have noticed that when it comes to mental health and mental health practices, we are in the midst of an evolution. And what I mean by that is I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'm sure there's plenty of clinicians who've been doing this longer than that as well. But during the time that I've been a clinician, and even going back to my early childhood or my young adult years, therapy was originally, from what I recall, that was something you did in private. You didn't tell people you were in therapy because it meant you were crazy. And so for that reason alone, there was this stigma that most people wouldn't even consider going to therapy. I know as an African American male, if anything, you went to the church, you went to a minister or a pastor with your problems, but you never went to a mental health professional because that means something was wrong with you. But over the years, the stigma has continued to decrease, and people appear more accepting and more willing to go to therapy. Now, people will even talk about it. They will say, well, I was in a session with my therapist and she said, or he said, or I've been making progress doing this. And what's really been helpful, which also shows the progression that we've made, is celebrities, whether they're actors or singers or some other type of performer, they're coming out and either talking about their mental or emotional struggles, or they're talking about being in therapy. And those they that proves to be a really good role modeling and kind of tells other people, you know what? Maybe there's something I should do. I've been struggling with this area because so many of us have been through unfortunate situations, have experienced trauma, or grew up in families that had some issues because nobody's family is perfect. And some things haven't been addressed. And now somebody's mind, which I hope happens with this book, where somebody who was thinking about therapy now will be more willing to give it a shot.
Definitely. So, Mr. Frank, to sum up our discussion or episode for today,
Mhm.
what is the importance of continuous learning in the field?
Well, like in any other field, whether it's mental health, whether it's the physical sciences, whether it's astronomy, there is so much more that we can learn. And the more we learn, the more we benefit ourselves, and and most importantly, we benefit everyone else. We benefit our society. I I tell my students, and I say this during the course, but I always say it on the last day of class. As long as we have a brain that functions and it works, as long as we have our health, we should always be striving to learn more and to be more.
Yes, to be more and to learn more. Everyday people, we need to learn something
We do.
because the universe is so vast.
It's you know what, and I hate to keep referring to my students, and I tell this to clients too. There is always far more that we don't know about a subject or person than that which we do. There's
Yes,
always more that we don't know. There is nothing that we know everything about.
definitely.
Nothing.
And nothing. Until now, we don't know what's the purpose of dark matter and dark energy.
Will we ever? I don't know. But we at least we should strive to try to understand it.
Yes,
It's
it's
just like
thriving.
in mental health. We should always strive to continue learning because, like I said, everyone will benefit.
Definitely. So, Mr. Frank, would you like to do a podcast about mental health? Let's say Mental 101.
Wow, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. I'll have to get that mental 101. I like
Yes,
the sound of that.
yes, you should. And if you're interested, let's do together.
Okay.
So, Mr. Frank, again, thank you so much for sharing your
Thank you.
inspiring and Grow. So, can you please invite our listeners to support Heal and Grow?
Yes, please. Well, the book is available on Amazon and other places where available, other places where online books are sold.
Yes.
And you can go to the website, ffrancisjones.com, and check out the merchandise and learn more about me and the book.
And the book,
Yep,
people.
Heal and Grow, Lessons Learned on My Journey as a Mental Health Professional.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. F. Francis Jones because if you support him, more empowering books like this to come. So, Mr. Francis, thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much.
More to come, people. See you soon. Yes, Mr. Frank, if you're interested, let's do Mental Health 101. Let's
Okay.
do